So if a web page takes, I don't know, more than like 3 seconds to load, you probably refresh it.
Right.
Or you just close the app entirely.
Oh, yeah. Or you just assume the entire internet is broken.
Exactly. I mean, we've practically engineered patience completely out of our modern lives. Everything is just optimized for instant gratification now.
Right. From same-day delivery to, on-demand streaming.
Oh,
Everything.
yeah. And because of that, we're heavily conditioned to believe that any gap between wanting something and getting it means, well, something has gone terribly wrong.
Which is such a dangerous mindset.
It really is. So for today's deep dive, we're asking a pretty big question. What if our modern obsession with speed is actually the exact thing causing our biggest failures?
It's a question that really challenges the core of how we operate today. And to explore it, we're looking at this really fascinating short story. On the surface, it features this young, highly intelligent crow who is basically the avian equivalent of us just furiously clicking that refresh button.
Just completely impatient.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But beneath the surface, it serves as this brilliant psychological case study on, you know, the mechanics of impulsivity versus strategic restraint.
Because this crow's whole operating philosophy is basically, why wait when I can act fast? Like if he sees food, his wings are already moving. If he has an idea, he jumps.
He's all action, zero pause.
Right. And later we'll talk about a very specific mistake he makes that causes so many people to, work twice as hard for absolute zero results. It's this trap of human psychology that I think almost everyone falls into at some point.
Oh, definitely. And, the older animals in the forest in this story, like there's a wise owl and a patient tortoise, they frequently try to warn this young crow.
They try to tell him to just slow down.
Right. They try to explain that waiting isn't a penalty, it's actually a tool, but he just brushes them off. He assumes they're just, slow and outdated.
Which sets up the first major concept we really need to explore today, which is how acting too quickly on a desire can actively sabotage your ultimate goals.
Yes.
So let's unpack why this matters so much to you, the listener. In our fast-paced world, we inherently equate speed with success. The early bird gets the worm.
We assume the first person to act is automatically the one who wins.
Right, but impulsiveness actually creates a severe biological handicap. So when your brain gets a spike of dopamine because it spots a reward, your amygdala, which is the brain's emotional and survival center, it kind of just takes over.
It completely hijacks the system.
Exactly. It focuses entirely on that target, and that effectively shuts down your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for scanning the environment for risks.
So it's basically neurological tunnel vision. You just become entirely blind to the situational context surrounding the reward you want.
Yeah. I mean, think of it like driving a car at night with your high beams off, and you're staring only at the GPS screen on your dashboard.
Right, because you want to get there as fast as possible.
Yeah. You know exactly where you want to go. But because your peripheral vision is narrowed entirely on that bright little destination screen, you completely fail to see the sharp turn and you just drive right into a ditch.
You had the right destination, but your execution completely ignored the environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like in everyday life, this is firing off a heated reply to an email without reading the room, or pitching a huge idea at work before the right people are actually ready to hear it. Which makes me wonder, is the problem the action itself, or is it just the timing?
Well, that driving metaphor perfectly aligns with the crow's first major failure in the source material to answer that. So it's a hot afternoon, and the crow spots a farmer spreading fresh seeds on the ground.
Ah,
The crow's brain registers the reward, food. His amygdala fires, demanding immediate action. He doesn't process the fact that the farmer, who is a massive, active threat, is still standing right there.
so the danger is literally standing inches from the goal, but the crow has that GPS tunnel vision we just talked about.
Exactly. Meanwhile, there are other birds perched on a branch nearby, and they're actively using their prefrontal cortexes to assess the situation. A sparrow even advises the group, like, hey, let's wait until he leaves.
But the crow doesn't listen.
No, the crow is already diving. He lands, frantically pecking at the seeds, and instantly the farmer claps, shouts, waves his arms, and just chases the crow away.
Whoa.
Yeah, the crow barely escapes. He flies off in a panic, heart pounding, utterly humiliated. And when he looks back from a safe distance, he watches the other birds, who simply waited for the farmer to leave, floating down to calmly eat the exact same seeds.
Oh, man. So it wasn't a lack of hunger on the sparrow's part. It was a difference in risk assessment.
What's that?
The action itself, eating the seeds was completely correct. The crow accurately identified what he needed. but the timing was disastrous. He let the urgency of his hunger completely override his awareness of the threat.
Right. The sparrow achieved the goal without triggering the threat response.
Yeah.
And that is the absolute essence of impulse control. Having the right idea or identifying the correct goal is completely useless if you execute it at a moment when the environment is hostile to your success.
So takeaway here is don't let the urgency of your desire blind you to the reality of the situation. Good timing is just as important as good action.
Very well said.
Like, if you fire off that brilliant pitch before the client is ready to hear it, the brilliance of the pitch doesn't even matter. The environment just wasn't ready.
Exactly. Now, avoiding the farmer shows us how impatience blinds us to active danger. But what about when the reward is completely safe, just sitting there, slightly out of reach?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because this is where impatience stops being a safety risk and transforms into a massive invisible energy drain.
Which introduces our second major concept for today. Impatience creates unnecessary, exhausting struggle because we often confuse thrashing around with actual progress.
We do. We have this deeply ingrained cultural assumption that if we are sweating and stressed and, working ourselves to the bone, we must be moving closer to our goals. We equate the volume of effort with the value of the outcome.
Okay, but wait, I have to push back hard on this.
Okay, go for it.
Because the entire ethos of modern business, especially stuff like Silicon Valley, is move fast and break things.
Right.
Like, if you just sit around waiting for the market to come to you, your competitor eats your lunch. Startups fail if they don't sprint. We are taught to be proactive, to force the issue, to hustle.
Yeah, the whole hustle culture thing.
Exactly. If you don't push, nothing happens. So where is the line between strategic patience and just being, well, passive or lazy, like forcing a new relationship to progress too fast, or launching a side hustle before the product is ready and burning out?
That is the critical distinction right there. Hustle culture is valuable when you are building the product in your own garage. But it becomes incredibly toxic when you try to force an external environment to yield before the conditions are right.
Okay.
There's a law of diminishing returns when you apply force to a system that isn't ready. Think of it structurally. Proactivity is positioning yourself for an opportunity. Reactivity is thrashing against an unyielding obstacle just because you can't stand the feeling of waiting.
That makes total sense. It's the difference between building a boat, which takes proactive hard work, and just jumping into the ocean and trying to
Right.
swim across it because you're too impatient to finish the boat.
That's a great way to put it.
One is strategic effort, and the other is just cortisol-driven exhaustion.
Exactly. And the story dismantles the myth of forced action in its second incident. So the crow spots a shiny piece of bread floating in a pond. He loves bread. And true to his reactive nature, he flies down to grab it immediately.
Naturally.
But the bread is floating slightly too far from the edge of the water. It's just out of reach.
So instead of accepting the boundary of the environment, he tries to force the outcome.
Right. He leans out further and further until he loses his balance and splashes right into the pond.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And now he's in actual physical peril. His wings become waterlogged and heavy. The narrative specifically highlights how he struggled and struggled, burning massive amounts of physical energy until he finally manages to drag himself out of the water.
Wow.
He's exhausted, he's shivering, dripping wet, and here's the kicker. He still doesn't have the bread.
So he exerted maximum effort for zero reward.
Exactly.
That is the mistake we teased earlier. It's the equivalent of sending like 5 aggressive follow-up emails to a hesitant client, annoying them so much that they block your email entirely when just giving them 3 days to think would have landed the contract.
Yes.
You burn all your relational and mental energy trying to force an outcome that the environment just isn't positioned to give you.
And you have to compare the crow's exhausting failure to the heron standing nearby in the story.
Oh, there's a heron.
Yeah, the heron is standing perfectly still in the shallow water. It watches the miserable crow and simply says, "I waited for the bread to float closer. Now it is easy to catch." And then the heron just dips its beak and effortlessly picks up the bread.
Wow, so the heron didn't lower its standards. It didn't abandon the goal of getting the bread at all.
No.
It simply let the current do a portion of the work.
It leveraged the environment. By practicing restraint, the heron preserved its physical energy and reduced its risk to zero. The crow's reactivity created a life-threatening struggle, whereas the heron's patience turned a difficult task into an effortless one.
The lesson is simple. Effort without patience is just exhaustion. Sometimes the absolute smartest move you can make is to stop thrashing, let the environment do some of the heavy lifting, and let the outcome float a little closer to you.
Exactly.
If you constantly feel like you're drowning in your own efforts, you might just be leaning too far into the pond instead of waiting for the current to shift.
It really requires a profound perspective shift to stop viewing waiting as a failure to act.
Right. And one of the most powerful lessons is coming up next, actually, because it flips the script entirely on what actually happens inside your brain and body when you choose to wait. Because patience isn't just about getting the seeds or the bread.
No, not at all. The climax of the source material shifts away from external strategies and focuses entirely on internal transformation.
Okay, let's get into it.
The core idea here is that patience is not a passive delay. It is an active, demanding period of internal growth.
We really have to reframe the waiting room of life. You know, when you're waiting for a major career breakthrough or waiting for a medical test result or like spending 4 years saving up for a down payment on a house.
It's so hard.
It feels like an agonizing punishment. It feels like you're paused while the rest of the world is hitting fast forward. And if you view it merely as killing time, it just slowly destroys your morale.
You feel like you're stagnating.
Yeah.
But developmental psychology tells us a completely different story. Like, consider the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment.
Oh, yeah, with the kids.
Right. It wasn't just a test to see which kids like marshmallows more. It was an observation of the cognitive strategies children use to manage their own distress while waiting. The children who succeeded didn't just sit there suffering.
What did they do?
They actively distracted themselves. They reframed the reward. They engaged their prefrontal cortex to manage the emotional tantrum of their amygdala.
Oh, wow. So they were doing intense cognitive work while appearing to do absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
That is the exact space where resilience, emotional regulation, and deep appreciation are forged. You aren't just passing time, you are actively building the neurological and emotional capacity to actually handle the reward when it finally arrives.
And the story illustrates this profound internal shift brilliantly. So the crow is starving. He's failed all day, burning through his energy reserves, and he finally spots a mango tree full of fruit.
Nice.
But there is a catch. The mangoes are hard, small, and completely green.
So they're completely unripe. The environment is giving a hard not yet.
Right. And a nearby parrot advises him to just wait a few days, explaining that the fruit will become sweet and soft. Now, for our impatient, highly reactive crow, waiting for days while starving feels physically impossible.
Of course it does.
His sympathetic nervous system, his fight-or-flight response, is screaming at him to find something else immediately. But here is the critical pivot. He remembers his past failures.
Oh, so he's learning.
Yes, he remembers the panic of the farmer and the near drowning in the pond.
He accesses his memory to override his impulse. He realizes his default strategy of forcing outcomes is the exact reason he's currently starving and exhausted.
Exactly. So he takes a deep breath, he looks at the green mangoes and says softly, "I will wait." And the text is incredibly honest here. It does not romanticize the wait at all.
It's hard.
It is brutal. Every morning he wakes up, looks at the hard green fruit, and feels the hunger pangs. Every afternoon he debates giving up and just flying away.
It's an active, exhausting, daily choice to not give in to the impulse. It isn't just sitting on a mountaintop feeling perfectly zen. It's the hard work of managing distress.
Yes. But as he commits to staying on that branch, enduring the discomfort of wanting something he cannot have, he begins to observe. He watches the sun rise and set. He watches the wind move through the leaves. He studies the slow rhythms of the forest.
And what happens?
As he does this, a fundamental physiological shift occurs.
He shifts out of the sympathetic nervous system and into the parasympathetic nervous system, right? The rest and digest state.
Exactly. By forcing himself to pause and observe, he is actively downregulating his vagus nerve. His cortisol levels drop, his heart rate slows. The text notes that he begins to feel calmer, quieter, and physically stronger despite not having eaten.
Wow. So the environment hasn't changed at all. The mangoes are still green, but he is fundamentally changing.
He is expanding his capacity to sit with discomfort.
And what is the payoff for this intense internal rewiring?
One morning, the air around the tree smells incredibly sweet. The mangoes have turned a bright, vibrant yellow. The crow reaches out, pecks one, and it is soft, juicy, and perfect. It's the most delicious thing he's ever tasted.
I love that.
But the true victory is in how he eats it. He eats slowly, peacefully, and happily. There's no frantic pecking, no fear of a farmer, no thrashing in the water, just pure, unadulterated joy.
Think about the alternative timeline there. If he had rushed it days earlier, he would have desperately choked down a bitter, hard mango, likely gotten sick, and missed the joy entirely.
Completely missed it.
By waiting, he didn't just get a better piece of fruit, he became a creature actually capable of experiencing the joy of the fruit. So what we can learn from this is, waiting doesn't just make the reward sweeter, it fundamentally upgrades the person receiving the reward.
Right.
The crow that ate the golden mango was an entirely different, vastly more regulated and wise bird than the frantic crow that dove at the seeds.
He became someone capable of holding the blessing without destroying it. That is the ultimate power of patience. It prepares your character for the very thing you are waiting for.
I think that's incredible. Let's take a moment to look back at the journey we've navigated together on this deep dive.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
We started by confronting the fact that rushing blindly after what we desire often ruins the exact opportunities we're trying to seize. Your action might be right, but if your timing ignores the risks in your environment, you will fail.
Then we explored the trap of forced effort. We dismantled the toxic side of hustle culture to understand that thrashing against an unready environment just causes severe burnout and dangerous exhaustion. We have to learn to let the current bring the bread closer.
And finally, we uncovered the hidden mechanics of the waiting room. True patience isn't a passive punishment. It's a neurological and emotional crucible. It actively changes who we are, building the capacity we need to actually enjoy our goals when we reach them.
Which perfectly encapsulates the final moment of our source story. Yeah. Long after the mango tree, the crow is known throughout the forest as a deeply wise bird.
Oh, wow. A full transformation.
Yeah, he watches carefully before he eats. He remains calm when the pace of life feels slow. And when the younger, frantic birds ask him how he became so steady, his answer is a profound reframe of time itself.
What does he tell them?
He tells them, I learned that waiting is not losing time, but gaining something much more valuable.
Gaining something much more valuable. It's a stunning evolution from a creature who believed every second not spent moving was a second wasted. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you step back into your fast-paced day.
I love this part.
Think back to that loading screen we talked about at the very beginning. That intense physical urge to refresh, to force the page, to demand instant results. Next time you feel that overwhelming urge to rush an outcome in your own life,
whether you're about to send a heated email, or force a career move, or push a relationship before it's ready.
Exactly. Take one deep breath, pause, and ask yourself, are you acting out of a true strategic necessity? Or are you simply acting out of an inability to sit quietly with your own anticipation? What might you gain and who might you become if you just stood still for a moment and let the bread float a little closer to you?
That is a question that is absolutely worth waiting for the answer to.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. It has been an incredibly eye-opening exploration of how we interact with time and our own desires. Until next time, take a breath, practice a little deliberate patience, and we will catch you on the next one.